I understand your wife's usually quite concerned about your internet history, and this week she was even more so.
Extremely concerned.
She saw a load of Middlesbrough matches you've been looking at.
Why have you been watching Middlesbrough matches? Sorry,
What's
darling.
wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Well, it's all about Michael Carrick, I promise.
Manchester United host Manchester City in the Manchester derby Saturday lunchtime at Old Trafford, with Michael Carrick at the helm, their third manager in as many weeks, and Manchester City come into town in very good form indeed off the back of that 2-0 victory away at Newcastle in the League Cup semi-final. I'm Will Pugh, that right there is SunSport tactical guru Dean Scoggin. As usual, on Tactics Exposed Team Talk, we'll be answering questions from you about the big game of the weekend, which of course is that Old Trafford showdown. Dino, exciting times, big game for lots of different reasons, exciting context behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Carrick, it's just is it going to be a sideways thing from Man United again, another legends being part of it, or are these players going to be able to adapt to a new system, a new way of playing, and roll with the punches a little bit? I mean, I was really impressed by Chelsea in their first two games under Liam Rosenior in how many tactics they were able to change in a very short period of time from the Enzo Maresca era. Man United players are yet to convince us that they've got that ability, so hopefully we see that from their perspective in the derby.
Absolutely. Dino, I understand your wife's usually quite concerned about your internet history, and this week she was even more so.
Extremely concerned.
She saw a load of Middlesbrough matches you've been looking at.
Why have you been watching Middlesbrough matches? Sorry,
What's
darling.
wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Well, it's all about Michael Carrick, I promise. I just needed some context as to some more idea of perhaps what Carrick's going to do, and obviously he's got some players coming back, so it is an exciting week for United, despite the fact Man City are coming to town.
Yeah, well look, Dino's been watching Middlesbrough matches and AFCON matches for you, so there'll be some high-level insight as usual in this show. Let's go to question number one straight off the bat. Dino, which forwards will Carrick pick? That seems like a fairly straightforward question. He's got a lot to choose from.
Yeah, and if we remember that in that 3-4-3 setup that under Amorim, and we will stop talking about it eventually, I promise, but that meant that you could get an Amad Diallo, for example, as a wing-back. And so when they did that recruitment of Brian and Burmo and Mateus Cunha, that was in mind of playing that different way. So clearly the club and the sporting director and the manager, and now a different manager, need to work that out and where it goes next with recruitment.
So let's just have a run through who he's got to pick from, Dino, right? You've got Šeško, obviously, Burmo, Cunha, Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, likely gets
and Amad
there,
Diallo.
and Amad as well, even Dorgu in recent times.
Yeah, and Shea Lacey going forward will enter that mix as well. But
that's 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that is not going to fit into what the Carrick setup will be. Very much assuming that is going to be 4-2-3-1. Okay, that's what he did at Middlesbrough. That's what he did at his time when he was at Man United last time. He's obviously an accomplished centre midfielder in his day, so he very much believes in that double pivot in midfield. So we expect to see that, which means really you're only talking about 4 attacking players. But remember as well, in this context, we're playing Manchester City. So therefore, we might not see in this game exactly what we'll see going forwards. But what I'd quite like to see, I'm going to go the other way to begin with and remind everybody what Manchester City are going to do in attack. So they will absolutely fly everybody forward and they will get into that attacking shape. Okay?
Give us 2 options then, Dino. Run through what's going to happen in the Man City game, which you're doing now, and then tell us how you think Carrick's going to play going forward-wise.
OK, so Manchester City will get into that attacking shape, OK? At least 5 players in that front line, if not a 6th, where they push another midfield player into that area, where Bernardo Silva, as I say, the most tactically flexible player in the Premier League, will move into that area, from deep at times if he plays. And so, therefore, a minimum of 5 in that area. So straight away, you're going to see that the double pivot of Manchester United are going to get split like that, and then you've got 2 centre-backs to occupy Haaland. So we're asking about attack here. So that means, let's say 5v4 in that area, if and when you win the ball back, if and when your goalkeeper goes direct. What I think is a great option in this game, just get this back here so I can show some space, is I would say that Amad Diallo, in the form he's been at AFCON, should play off the right-hand side. He was playing as a wing-back, which I was a believer in under Amorim, but he didn't get in enough attacking areas, system, adaptability, other players he was playing with from that position. We saw for the Ivory Coast in the last couple of weeks, he's got into this area here, he's got into these positions, he's got into attacking positions, crosses, shots, and I'm not normally a big believer in XG, but that just shows from a winger perspective, he's only got 2 goals in something like 1,200 Premier League minutes. And so all of a sudden you put him back in that position where he could attack players. All right, I can hear the comments, not against Premier League defenders, but they're playing some good sides now in AFCON, and he got into this area and he shot. So what you're going to say next is Brian Mbeumo, okay?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I think Brian Mbeumo, in this game against Manchester City, should play there, in an attacking position there, and Matheus Cunha there.
No Šeško.
No Šeško. Because I believe that in that setup, they can get into 1v1 situations in direct runs against Manchester City. We saw that when Manchester City played Brighton away. Brighton did it with Matuma and then their other flying forwards that they've got, Minter off the other side. And they just went one man v man. And when they won the ball back, they played the ball into those areas there and had these guys flying up and then a midfielder supporting.
Realistically, though, Dino, like you said, let's call it as it is. Manchester City are a better team than Manchester United. They will have them pinned back in the box, as they do to lots of teams lots of the time. You can't be telling me that United are going to let that happen. If City have got 5 to 6 players on the edge of their box pretty much, that they're going to leave 3 players plus that midfielder up. They're going to be pinned back in their own half, these players, aren't they? Yeah,
a lot of them will be, which is why I think Bruno Fernandes plays here as the 10. That's another one of those reasons, because we'll come on to a slightly different Carrick setup in a minute, as I talked about before, but that then means that Bruno Fernandes is the flex player in here. And then, so you've got, let's just say they're dropping back in that deep position. Now you've got 5v3 in that area.
But the wingers are going to be deep, aren't they?
The wingers will hopefully, if it works well enough for Man United, will pivot. So either this one comes back in because the ball's on this side, which means you're going here so that you can release the switch of play into those areas there. And we've talked before on Tactics Exposed and Team Talk about Brian Mbeumo's great positioning where he hangs in between players so that he's then chasing the ball in behind. With that clever movement, that's why I think he can play in this game as a 9, and then that gives you the opportunity to play Amad Diallo there. And Amad Diallo has been doing a lot of defensive work, sometimes not great, but he has been doing a lot of defensive work as a wing-back. And so by playing him there, that also means that your right back can tuck in, and if you get him back there, he's giving you that extra defensive option. And then if Cunha then joins Brian Mbeumo in a counter-attack, Amad Diallo is going to get himself up here to join. So I just think against Manchester City, that makes them more mobile going forward. No Xerxes, no Šeško in that instance. It makes them a little bit more, a lot more speedy on the counter-attack. And it does get their 3 best ball players in that front 3, and still includes Bruno Fernandes.
Right, but then briefly, Dino, just to wrap up point number 1, if that, I know these managers flex and they pick players based on obviously who they've got available, but also who they're playing. Less so the bigger teams, but Manchester United, unfortunately, at the moment where they're at, do have to flex a little bit and consider what their opponents are doing more than perhaps they would have done when Michael Carrick was playing in midfield for them. Just briefly then, what would be your go-to attacking setup, just to go back to the question, a bit more generally?
Yeah, well, what's very interesting about how Michael Carrick set Middlesbrough up and how he's liked to play in previous games is that it's the 9 and the 10, which is interesting for me, because what he did, and it was Chuba Akpom who did it at Middlesbrough, you would expect him to be the big physical number 9, and actually in build-up play, he's in the number 10 position. Okay. So those 2 players switch over, and that means the physical player is involved in build-up play here, which means then the 10 goes past the 9, and then the other 2 players hopefully get joined in as well. So going forward, that could be Šeško, that could be Xerxes. Yep. He plays in that more the position there. And for me, that gives even more reason that Brian Mbeumo might end up playing in a more advanced striker position under Carrick, because he would be the one that goes past the ball, as we've seen a lot. The goals they scored at Anfield, you know, there was a couple at home in previous games where Šeško has flicked it round the corner into that area for Mbeumo to run onto. So that's something to consider. But straight away, I know people are we're going to move on to the next section in a minute, and people are going to start saying that we're just going back to a back three again. But straight away, that front four, unlike in the Amorim system, becomes a bit more flexible. And I will say over and over again, it's not just about the system, it's about how the players adapt. So the really big test for these Man United players in the next couple of weeks is, can they adjust to a new manager's system and then go, OK, I understand what I'm supposed to do in that system, because in that Amorim system, it took half these Man United players about 3 months to understand. Yeah, we haven't mentioned Mason Mount there as well. I mean, I don't think he can force his way into their best attacking front three, but obviously if Carrick sees that they're getting overrun in midfield, you can almost go to like a box midfield and almost have Mount and Fernandes as a two in there and go to a more, you know, normal front two if that's the case. You know, and as we say, we know that Bruno can play at the base of that two if necessary. But it's at Old Trafford, it's the Manchester derby, it's his first game. They want to bring a bit of feel-good factor back. I would like to see them get their best attacking three on the field.
Nice one. Let's move on then, Dino, to question number 2. Will Carrick finally dropped Darlow and Shaw? Darlow splits Manchester United fans, doesn't he? A little bit Marmite, I think. Luke Shaw, perhaps a little bit unreasonable. He was he was a good player for Amorim's system, wasn't he? Do you think that's harsh before you answer it?
I don't actually. I think that, you know, I got this question came through on my TikTok, so that was great, and it was in reference, I think, to the fact that we talked a lot in previous episodes about players can give a great deal of effort, but does that make them good enough to play for Manchester United? And Darlow's one of those. I've got nothing against him whatsoever. He tries very hard. You know, he gets up and down. He was one of the ones under Ruben Amorim who was actually one of the most tactically flexible and did the job that was asked of him. Just because he's not an elite level fullback, you know, or wing back in a lot of games, that shouldn't be that much of a criticism. But
yeah, you have to have the quality as well as hard work to play.
And look, Luke Shaw became a little bit, I mean, that certain ex-Manchester United pundit who appears in all places, who's not very popular at the moment, and he had this issue with Luke Shaw. And
there loads of them.
Oh, there is a few, yeah. But that one in particular, we know who we mean. Is Luke Shaw is an old school Premier League fullback, and the game has moved along a lot in the last couple of years. Inverted fullbacks, and then to these fullbacks like Manchester City's going and being the two wide players in a front five. And Luke Shaw's probably not that player. So the fact that he often occupied the left centre-back position in Amorim's system showed that. So I'm hoping that's why this question's coming in, because in a back three, Luke Shaw was more natural as a left centre-back. But again, as I said, I've watched a lot of Middlesbrough and a lot of what Carrick's done in previous places. I also want to mention Steve Holland in a minute, but we'll come back to that. But so I don't expect to see Luke Shaw playing in this position at left back if Carrick says, I want to attack down the left. Because what he did a lot with Middlesbrough was had an out-and-out winger this side on the right. Let's move the 10 and the forward there. And then this left forward, which in this instance will be Matheus Cunha, comes inside. And it was the left back who became the extra player. And often, and it was when they played at their best, Middlesbrough, this was Ryan Giles. So thanks to Gaz Stonehouse, our brilliant North East reporter who talked me through a lot of that as well, is that it was Ryan Giles arriving late. So the tactic was get this player on this side to come in here and bring the player with him, and then the left back goes and runs up there.
So that's going to be Dorgu.
It's going to be Dorgu. If that's the tactic that Carrick chooses, you would expect that not to be Luke Shaw, which then has a knock-on effect to Darlow over here, where they then would form, let's bring a couple of players back, because on Manchester City won't leave six up all the time. But, you know, let's just say that becomes a back three out of possession. And I can hear everyone going, oh, it's a back three again. Of course it's not. This is an attacking shape. shape.
Yep.
So when you defend, Dorgu comes back in here, or whoever the left back comes back in here, everybody drops, and then you've got your men behind the ball.
If people have watched enough Tactics Exposed, Dino, they know what an attacking shape is.
Exactly, and they know that it's a 3-2-5 attacking shape, okay? And that was very much the Carrick shape. So the double pivot at the base of midfield, and then the left back pushing on. And so therefore, you could see Lenny Yoro play at right back, because if they're accepting, especially against Manchester City, that then you move the two centre-backs and then the right back become a back three, you know, Aidan Heaven, Lissandro Martinez, obviously De Ligt is injured, so that's a bit of a problem for them. Harry Maguire could get a shout in this, because Carrick, knowing he wants experienced
not
players...
A right back.
No, not a right back, back in at centre-back. But you could then have one of the centre-backs nominally as the right back, knowing that they're not going to be the one that attacks. So if he does decide it's Luke Shaw this side, and he says, OK, we'll attack with the right back down that side, then maybe Darlow does get the game, and he pushes up into that, make that 5 there in attack. But it won't be both.
What's a better option? Sounds like Dorgu to me.
For me, it does sound like Dorgu, because what I think is going to be, where Dorgu has shown his best ability in recent weeks, has been really bombing forward, and it was games where he played as the winger in the 4-2-3-1 under Darren Fletcher. So actually, if they can get, you know, bear in mind a lot of the time against Manchester City, you're going to be counter-attacking. You want fast, progressive runners. So if one of those passes from midfield can free Dorgu up on the overlap, and you get him 1v1 against Matheus Nunes, that would be a favourable thing for Man United, definitely. So I don't think he'll drop both of them. But maybe he could. You know, they've played a lot of games, and I like the idea of Dorgu on the left, and maybe it's Dalot, maybe it could be Yoro on the right-hand side. A lot of that depends on what they do with midfield as well.
Yeah, nice one, Dino. And don't forget, with Betfair Safe Sub, your bet isn't over if the player you have backed gets subbed off, because your bet simply rolls over onto the player coming on. So, for example, if you've backed Dorgu to get a yellow card and then he gets hauled off and replaced by Luke Shaw, before that has happened and then Luke Shaw gets booked, you still get paid out. Happy days. Right, Dino, let's move on then to question number 3. Manchester City fans watching this video will be very, very relieved indeed that there's finally a Manchester City section. How do Manchester United stop Antoine Semenyo? £64 million from Bournemouth. Great start to his City career.
And should have another goal, but for the VAR farce in that game at St James's Park as well.
All right.
Ruining the game, innit?
It was a great start to his Man City career, is what I was in the middle of saying.
Sorry.
So how do Manchester United stop him? Because a lot of other Premier League teams this season have struggled.
Yeah, and he's got 3 and 4 against Man United as well, and scored against them earlier in the season. So they should be pretty aware of him straight away.
What's the answer there?
It's nice to have a question that's not how do you stop Erling Haaland, isn't it? But the problem is they've got to stop both of them.
Exactly.
So let's just move Man United back into that back 4 shape, which we think they'll do. And then these midfield players are going to be key. Number 10 drop back in. And as I say, Cunha has been better at defensive work recently, and if Amad Diallo does play this side, then he gets that option as well, OK? So Man City will push these players right on. They will, at times, be 3-2-5. At other times, they'll be 2-3-5 in attack, because they'll back themselves to keep possession in these areas. So what you have to create against Manchester City is blocks around the edge of the area. So these 2 players being absolutely key for Man United, and one of them is going to be Casemiro, and I've told Samuel Luckhurst, our brilliant Man United reporter, right finger on the pulse throughout all the manager stuff, and he talked about how much time Carrick has spent over the last few days, and Fletcher before him, with Casemiro. So key leader on the field, he's going to understand the tactical plan, but there's going to be 2 of them. So will it be Kobbie Mainoo? That's a question we've been asking for weeks. I think so, yes, because if Kobbie Mainoo wins the ball in these areas just quickly, he's capable of bursting away from players and beating players with a progressive run. I can't see it being Ugarte. I mean, you know how good Michael Carrick was in midfield, watched him at West Ham. I know how good he was, watched him at Tottenham, and then he got even better when he was at Man United. And I can't see a progressive midfield player with the ability of Michael Carrick picking somebody like Ugarte who can't pass the ball 5 yards. So
how does this impact Semenyo?
It's these 2 players dropping in either side of their centre-backs, okay? So if you can get him there 1v1 and him there 1v1, that means your centre-backs can still do their Haaland job. But the knock-on effect of that, this is really key. The knock-on effect is that if you've got 2v1 against Haaland, it means one of your centre-backs can do that near-post run. And that near-post run is key. So if the cross is going to come in from this side, let's say Matheus Nunes is on the overlap and he gets over into this position here, Semenyo might come from the left, he might come from the right. But let's say it comes over this way and Semenyo is attacking this back post because he just gets in the box all the time. And under Man City so far, under Pep Guardiola, the instruction's pretty clear. Crash the box, an extra player in the box. So that means if you've got 2v1 here, this centre-back can block the cross and this centre-back can still mark and you've still got a marker there. So by having 2v1 against Haaland, you've got to be able to have the centre-backs freeing themselves up. The second thing about that is that in that position there, let's say you've got your full-backs of Man City who've pushed on and then for example, you could have Semenyo and Cherki in those areas there. Again, it means that Bruno Fernandes can drop, assuming he's the 10, he can drop in here and he's the one that's going to stop the pass. So that means you've got an extra man again, stop that pass into Semenyo there. Stop that pass into Semenyo there. Because what you don't want is him rolling players into this position there to get into the area. He is unbelievable at picking the ball up in this position and then 3 touches later being in the area for either a shot or cross. So block the channel and block the feed of the run into him using that extra player that you've got in midfield. It's going to be very difficult for United, obviously, against Man City, but very difficult United in that setup to then get out. But that's why I said in question 1, I like the 3 players in the direct football. Don't worry about only having 30% possession against Manchester City, because actually that can make you more dangerous in that area there when you win it back and you can get those players away. But block the channel and then free the centre-backs to block off. Because the other thing is, if Semenyo gets into that area there and one of these players has switched off, when you've got 2v1 in the centre-back's position, you then hand him over. But communication in that area for United is going to be massive. And Man City have so many threats. Cherki, Foden, Doku, how do you stop them all? For me, though, it's making that back 4 into a back 6 and then having a man block the passing lanes.
Sounds like parking the bus, I think, would have been the short answer for that one. Dino, look, thank you very much for watching, everyone. This has been Tactics Exposed Team Talk. Make sure you let us know what you think of everything Dino's had to say in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. As always, don't forget to join us for Tactics Exposed Monday, where we'll be looking back at the biggest and best game of the Premier League weekend. Likely this one, but you'll have to check back and see. See you then.